Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel, the Patreon. We're trying Patreon. We're trying StreamYard. I'm messing with a bunch of stuff for this video. And it's about Taylor Swift because, that should get the clicks. So I haven't done a Taylor Swift review, and I don't have a song review. It's kind of a current events video on what is going on with Taylor Swift triggering the Republicans, the talking heads on the right, all of the nonsense that's going on between her and Travis Kelce. So what's going on with Taylor Swift? Well, nothing is the short answer. She's not doing anything different than she did since 2018, in which she has been minimally politically active. She is wildly popular with white women and girls, elder millennials down to, I don't know, toddlers. What's gonna be under Gen Z? That group too. She's one of, if not the largest, musical entities in our current pop culture in America. So what happened is she's dated some people. Some of them have been problematic. Maddie Healy from the 1975 is a problematic figure, and Taylor was dating him for a while, even when he was a problematic figure. And she kind of skates by all of this stuff by not engaging. And I have a great many issues with Taylor Swift, mainly that I don't like her music, because I don't like pop music. I don't specifically dislike her music more than I dislike other pop music. Just not a fan. It's not what I like. Her best album is her Sad Dad album, which she worked with Bryce Dessner from The National, and I like The National, so that album ended up being all right. And she's like collaborated with Bon Iver and whatever. It's fine. She does breakup songs and pop music, and it's not for me, and that's all fine. She's a Nepo baby. So she has this like Christian-ish, Christian adjacent. She was Christian coded for sure when she started coming up and just doing country music, which is also Christian coded for no good reason that I can tell. But she wasn't out and out activist anywhere. And here's the thing, like she kind of had this down home girl next door vibe. She was not hypersexualized. She was not like overly modest though either. Like again, it was never like I'm a Christian so I dress this way. It was just she's the most contrived PR generated pop star I can imagine existing. Her dad bought a record studio or a record company to produce her first album. So like again, she's not some down home country girl next door. She's super wealthy, was born into a ridiculously wealthy family who got ahead because of her family's wealth. And like that's my issue. That's my big issue with her is she's a Nepo baby and nobody talks about she's a Nepo baby. She like has in her bio she grew up on a farm, which she absolutely did not. Her dad owned a Christmas tree farm to make money off of, which is different than growing up on a farm. She grew up on a massive house in super rich areas. So like not picking on her specifically, no issues with her. There are other Nepo babies in the industry. There's a lot of Nepo babies in the industry. One of the best ways to get ahead in capitalism is to be born rich. So fingers crossed that worked out for you. If you didn't, you missed it. Yeah, and like whatever, she's a huge polluter. She uses her private jet all the time and is again like she gets by not having controversy by just not ever responding to anything. So she has this huge following. She's got a lot of clout. And in 2018 she like endorsed a Democrat running for governor of Tennessee. I don't remember which one, which she's located in Nashville now. Country music, right? Makes sense. And so again, like minimally politically active. And I'm not sure why the right wing's so mad about it. But like the governor she endorsed in 2018 lost. Like she just basically was like, there's somebody running who's against abortion. This person's for abortion rights, reproductive health care. But like not in a big showy way. I think she talked about it like once at a concert. I know she's not LGBTQ plus friendly. She's not an ally anyway. She hasn't been against it, but she's not going out of her way to advocate for much during Pride Month, in which the most corporate PR versions of things change their colors to pride flags and say, we like gay people too. She did that. And again, like, she's just a PR machine. She's a pop star who exists at the front of a PR machine. That's what it is. And like, it's fine. I don't have specific issues with her. I push back gently on the people who are like Swifties for life to be like, well, she's basically her own corporation at this point that has a really tight PR firm and like isn't doing anything good for anyone other than you like the generic music she makes. Cool. But again, none of this is about her personally or her being an issue. She just doesn't do a lot. And that's kind of why conservative talking heads, right-wing media thought she was one of them. Because if you know anything about current politics, right-wing is super unpopular. Only about half of the country votes, and less than half, so less than 25% of them vote Republican. And so like Republican talking points and stances are wildly unpopular. The war on drugs, wildly unpopular. Keeping marijuana illegal, wildly unpopular. I'm in a state where it still isn't legal, so I can tell you like 80% of Wisconsinites want weed to be legal, and the Republican legislature that only exists because Wisconsin is gerrymandered, one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, is because they won't let it happen. Because again, they're okay being unpopular when they're gerrymandered the state so that they can't lose. They don't need to listen to their constituents. So anyway, Republican talking points are unpopular. Taylor getting out in front of it and being aware, PR machine that she is, being like, hey, I'm gonna not be Republican, is probably a savvy business move. Like, again, if you're gonna capitalism, great. She made like $1 billion on her tour this past year, and like everyone was like, oh, she gave $100,000 to all her truck drivers. That's great. And like, it's not. Like, I guess probably on like bringing money into towns, that's really great. But like, she's such a phenomenon that like cities where she toured were like, don't go out if you're not going to the concert. Like, this is going to be a zoo. So like, it's great to pay people who maybe might not see benefits or bonuses from working on a concert tour. Well, like, it's great to give them bonuses. I support that. But also like, we wouldn't need that if we had good workers' rights and unions and things like that in this country. We would get paid the way we should get paid, and we wouldn't need bonuses from benevolent billionaires. Yay. So all this sounds like I'm very anti-Taylor. And again, like, I'm anti-capitalism. I'm anti not being anti-capitalism. She doesn't do enough with her platform, but neither do most people. Nearly no celebrities are good at this. So she's not extra bad. She's just not good. She's neutral. She's really bad for the environment. And that is a thing I care about. So why is everyone freaking out? She did in 2020, she made like cookies that said Biden Harris 2020 on them and put them on her Instagram or something. Like, again, she was not on the campaign trail. She wasn't super overt with it. It was just like, here's where I stand if you're curious. And that's, again, the bare minimum. That's what she did. No one cared in 2020. Like, I'm sure Republicans cared, but it wasn't like the news cycle, and it wasn't like vitriolic nonsense. I'm sure it was just like, she went woke. But like, whatever. It wasn't a big deal because she wasn't using her clout. Now, 2024 election, she's the worst. There's government CIA. She's a CIA or FBI operative, depending on which conspiracy theory you're a part of. And that's contrived to make the Chiefs win the Super Bowl because she's dating the tight end, Travis Kelce, from the Chiefs. And like, it's very bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. She's been wildly popular since before Trump was a politician. So like, all of this doesn't make any sense. The Chiefs are in the middle of a dynasty run because they have one of the best coaches in the NFL and one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And Travis Kelce is arguably currently the best tight end in the NFL. So like, I don't know, they're good. The fact that they're in the Super Bowl isn't shocking Do I think major sports are somewhat scripted? Sure. Do I think they're predetermined? Not necessarily. Although, as sports betting keeps getting bigger, I'm going to keep being a bigger conspiracy theorist about it. But like, those are rational and somewhat logical conspiracy theories to have. And former NBA refs have come out on record and said the NBA is rigged. We are paid to call more or less fouls on certain people. Not rigged in the sense that we decide what the final score is going to be, but rigged in that the NBA wants good stories and good games, and they want their best players to be in the big games that are on primetime for money reasons. So, like, okay, do I think sports are fixed completely? No. Do I think sports are played totally honestly at the highest level? Absolutely not. So, again, that has nothing to do with the CIA or the FBI. If the NFL were to get behind a political party, it would be Republicans, because Republicans are against taxes on the wealthy. They want to tax low and middle class people and cut taxes for the incredibly wealthy. They have gone so far as to stack the Supreme Court, which has then declared that corporations are people and therefore can give money to politicians, which in any other country is known as bribery. And we have decided to make it legal and call it lobbying instead. So, like, none of this makes sense that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are on the left. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that uses physical labor from its people and does not compensate them properly, and gives a ton of millions, if not billions of dollars to wealthy owners who do nothing for their teams. Again, like, that's capitalism. That's on the right wing. They don't want to pay their taxes. They don't want to pay pensions for people. They don't want to pay for treatment of CTE. They want to kick out people for using drugs, and they are cool with their most prolific Super Bowl winning quarterback, Tom Brady, being a multi-time proven cheater. Like, I don't know. The NFL is not a good guy. I'm not defending the NFL. It's such a weird news story because I'm defending all these entities that I dislike. Taylor Swift, not a fan. NFL, not a fan. Do I watch the Packers? Yes. There's cognitive dissonance there. I'm aware. But do I support the NFL? Do I want to give them money? Do I think they do a good job? Like, no, I don't. Nope. I don't think any sports industry does. Dana White hit his wife on live television. Ari Helwani, who owns UFC, just bought WWE, knowing Vince McMahon is a rapist. So, like, there's no good guys at that level of the billion-dollar industry. No sports or corporations that I consume their media are good. Giant corporations aren't good. Senators, politicians, celebrities, with the exception of, like, maybe Dolly Parton and Keanu Reeves, not good. So, like, again, why is everyone upset? Like, I think, best guess, because, again, everything that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce represent should be right wing, right? Like, the fact that maybe she's in her 30s and isn't married is upsetting, but, like, she's a serial monogamer. She hasn't come out and said she's part of the LGBTQ plus community. She hasn't said she's poly. She hasn't said she's anything. She seems to be like pop star dating the football star. Like, that's what right wing thinks the 1950s was made of. Like, the homecoming queen gets the football star. Hooray. Also, racism doesn't exist. Like, that's what the right wing wants. And that's what two very wealthy, very white people doing very American things, singing country/pop music and playing American football for, like, a giant media conglomeration that probably makes billions of dollars off of people getting injured and doesn't take care of them or pay taxes appropriately or build their own stadiums or provide anything for infrastructure. Like, again, this is as right wing as it gets. So why are they so very bent out of shape? Well, the right wing is running out of options, right? So at this point, it is a cult. As somebody, me, who works with religious trauma and has studied authoritarian mind control tactics in cults, how these groups control people and how people can get away from them. The right wing, MAGA, Make America Great, Republican Party in America, is a cult because it's Donald Trump. In spite of any sort of logic or reason, it is based on loyalty. It is based on being an extremist at this point, and it's not based on anything else. So there is no level of hypocrisy. There is no level of logic that you can apply to these things. It doesn't make sense. And one of the main tactics that cults use is fear. And so there always has to be an in-group and an out-group, and that out-group has to be scary. Joe Biden, according to the right wing, is too old. He has dementia. He can't do anything. And simultaneously, he's like super efficient and doing all this stuff and has all the power in the world. And he's plotting all these, layers that we can't contend with because he's so devious and evil. And also he can barely function. And like, again, those two things don't jive, but when you're othering a group, you need to say they are both weak and strong at the same point. We need to be scared of how strong Joe Biden is because look at all the things he's doing. Oh no, he's giving people health care and wants kids to get free lunches at school. Communism. That's not communism. But again, they're just throwing out a word that's scary. And like, oh, he's so frail, he can barely walk up the stairs. This guy shouldn't be fit for being president. Those things conflict, and there's no cognitive dissonance there because there doesn't need to be any cognitive balance. There doesn't need to be anything logical that makes sense. It's just fear mongering. And so all of the fear mongering is running out. We had all the Hunter Biden stuff. It's not going anywhere. And they did it too soon. So they can't get it going during the election because there's nothing there. There's no evidence to impeach Joe Biden with. There's not even anything to really be charging Hunter Biden with. Perhaps he did his taxes wrong. Like, I don't know if y'all follow the news where Donald Trump's in the news for fraud, not doing his taxes properly. But like, again, Hunter Biden's not an elected official. He's not part of the cabinet. I brought up that like Vince McMahon was a rapist and the guy who owns UFC and bought WWE knew that and still bought WWE anyway. Donald Trump's friends with Vince McMahon and put Linda McMahon, his wife, who had no business in this role, as the small business member of the cabinet, even though she works for a multi-billion-dollar corporation, the World Wrestling Entertainment industry. Like, it's insanity to see how corrupt this all is. Anyway, I'm off topic. So there's fear mongering that needs to go on. The Kansas City Chiefs are American, right? Like American football. It's Kansas City. They booed an anti-racist statement that got announced before a game in 2020. Like, this is the NFL that blacklisted a player who took a knee during the national anthem and talked about police brutality and then was out of the NFL within a year. Like, Aaron Rodgers can complain about being canceled on a highly televised show once a week. And like, again, we have a guy who's actually canceled, Colin Kaepernick. No one talks about that. The media does not do a good job in asking any of these cognitive dissonant questions. So Kansas City is not like a bastion of progressiveness. I'm from the Midwest, and I will defend the Midwest against its outside critics, in-group, out-group dynamics. Look at that. They affect us all because Milwaukee gets picked on a lot for being this trash city when it's not as trashy as other cities. It's not as bad as it could be. Isn't a great argument, but like, that's still a thing. Like, so I'll defend the Midwest. I've been to Kansas City. It's fine. It's not awesome. It's not terrible. It's not super progressive. It's very Midwestern-y. It's like Akron. I've never been to Akron, so maybe that's offensive. My wife's from Michigan, and Michiganders really don't like Ohio, so maybe Akron's really bad. It's whatever. It's a Midwest state. It's not LA. It's not super progressive. It's not in your face about anything progressive. It is in a red state. And like, most cities are going to go blue, right? Like, most population centers are going to vote Democrat, but like, it's still a red state. So Kansas City is not some progressive stronghold where like, aha, I'm going to take this country singer from Nashville and this football player from Kansas City and be like, progressives. No, that sounds as conservative could dream up. This should be a conservative power couple. So, a couple of things have gone on that have made the world lose their minds. COVID happened during Donald Trump's presidency. Donald Trump disbanded the pandemic response team 2 years before COVID hit because Obama made the pandemic response team when scientists said, hey, we're not super well set up in case there's a global pandemic. We should work on that. So like, real poor timing. Trump, famous idiot, who suggested injecting bleach into your veins and tried to popularize having horse paste, thing veterinarians use to treat deworm horses. as possible things, which we know scientifically, hey, in case you haven't followed this, weren't effective at treating COVID. Some other like right-wing talking points. Aaron Rodgers, Joe Rogan got monoclonal antibodies, which is like a thing that works well. You take healthy antibodies from a healthy body and you get those into a body that's been effective. That works. It's super expensive, which is why famous high school dropout and famous college dropout, Joe Rogan, Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, that's false. Let me correct myself. Neither of them finished college. I do think Joe Rogan attended for half of a semester. Famed high school graduate and famed college dropout are touting these things, but science has roundly said, nah, this is what worked. This is what didn't. What was cost effective for the general population was the COVID vaccine. Travis Kelce has appeared in like 2 commercials saying, hey, get your COVID booster, which at this point is about the efficacy of the flu shot, which works. If you get the flu, you get a milder case of it because your body is more prepared to be immune to it and it recognizes as a threat and fights it faster. Doesn't mean you never get it, because that's what an endemic means. We're no longer in the pandemic phase. We're in the endemic phase. We're trying to mitigate extreme cases. Lots of people are still dying from COVID on a daily basis. Like, it didn't go away. It's just affecting people who are ill or high risk. So like, hey, middle finger to everybody who's against it, having 2 people in my family who are otherwise lovely human beings and wonderfully healthy who have asthma. And I worked with a ton of people who lost members of their family during COVID, like you assholes. If you're watching my videos, you're probably not an asshole. This is just vitriolic towards people who aren't going to watch me. So yeah, it's weird. The right wing went super anti-vax. And here's kind of what's happening is right wing politics in America since Ronald Reagan have been racist and classist. Like, summing it up here into the simplest terms, the biggest view, it is about cutting taxes for the wealthy. It is about keeping the Black and brown people separate so that poor people, predominantly Black and brown people, and poor white people cannot work together to overthrow rich people. And like, I don't know, it's not a lot more complicated than that. And so they can't say that. Ronald Reagan did, and it worked. He got reelected, if you can believe that much. And he was an awful human being, and he pretended to be a Christian, and that was good enough back then. But now with the internet, like, we kind of have access to everything all at once, all the time. And so people are aware of like, hey, you're cutting taxes for rich people. And that's not a popular talking point. The other thing that the Reagan administration did was work with known eugenicist Jerry Falwell, who had a kid who's super into cuckolding. And I'm not going to kink shame, but if you're pretending to work at a Christian university and kick out gay people, but then you have a kind of not straight kink that you're into, like, I'm going to call you a hypocrite. So Falwell was a eugenicist, and the right-wing homeschool movement is super dominionist, which is basically Christians should rule over everybody, and also eugenicist. So like, not the best people we're dealing with here. And Reagan was like, let's bring those people in. And the right-wing popularity keeps shrinking. So they took Christian things and were like, let's save babies. Let's not pay for healthcare for babies or for mothers or for children once they're born. We're just going to hyper-fixate on babies because we don't actually have to do anything for them other than say that they're babies. And that's what we've done for 50 years. And then they overturned Roe versus Wade, which gave enshrined abortion rights for people, enshrined healthcare rights for people. If that healthcare included getting an abortion, then they could get one legally. And so they overturned that, and it's wildly unpopular. Bad idea. Turns out a lot of people, even good little Christians who pretend to care about preborn fetuses, want abortion access because sometimes they get abortions. So this is wildly unpopular. And so we're left with like religious extremists. And then Donald Trump was friends with white supremacists because they've been in the Republican Party for a while. So like, he's friends with Roger Stone, who's friends with Richard Nixon, who's a white supremacist, and also super corrupt. So like, again, the religious right is shrinking. And then the Republican Party outside of the religious community is shrinking. And so they're running out of people. and they're panicking. And so they need to find a new big bad enemy because it turns out that most people are aware that rich people aren't paying enough taxes, and that's a problem. It's coming around that unions and worker rights were really good for people. And this is all because there's rising inequality in our country. So I, a millennial, 35, graduated college in 2009, right after the 2008 recession. Not a great time to enter the workforce. And so we've had like these economic downturns and kind of coming to the point where whatever version of the American dream was being sold isn't true and never was. But like we're definitely seeing that it's not true now. And so this is a problem when your platform is let's cut taxes for the rich because people are like, nah, the rich people are making the rest of us poor on purpose. That's terrible. Let's stop doing that. So the right wing media machine keeps getting smaller and smaller, and they need bad guys, and they're running out. They're struggling with their messaging because they need to pull someone in, so they can't go to like the race thing because they can't get too racist because if they lose any of the few non-white people they have, that means they won't win. And like Donald Trump lost to Hillary Clinton by 3 million votes. Like he won in the Electoral College, which is a system that's devised to not let popular vote decide because our country was founded by rich white people who owned land and didn't want anyone who wasn't rich white and landowning to have as much of an equal vote as they did. It's also why the Senate exists. So there's all these checks and balances in place. Anyway, Donald Trump lost by what, 3 million to Hillary, 7 million to Biden. And the fact that it was even like pretending to be close when that's like multiple red states, the population of multiple red states, like Montana's population is like 800,000, the entire state. So again, the fact that they get 2 senators and so does California or New York or even, Minnesota, Wisconsin, which are bigger than them, like is not equal representation. Or fair representation, or equitable, because I don't super like the words fair, or equal. So yeah, all this stuff is not great for Republicans. Donald Trump is wildly unpopular. He's a known rapist at this point. He's a known insurrectionist at this point. So the only people who are voting for him are already in the cult. Now, how does any of this have to do with Taylor Swift? I sound like Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny during the Pepe Sylvia video. There's a meme where his eyes are bloodshot and there's all these red lines and strings as he's working out a conspiracy theory. When you're in a cult and something is going on with the leader, they've made a prediction, a prophecy that hasn't come true. They're involved in some scandal, which again, we've had plenty of those for Donald Trump. So he's a weird cult leader. This is a weird time for cult studies to look at MAGA. But it's one of those things where we've seen versions of this. Leaders have gotten away with a rebrand or kind of survived. But what they do is they tighten the screws on the cult members. And so to create that in-group, out-group, you need to keep having an out-group, an other, somebody who's not part of your group, and they need to be scary. And again, they're trying to not alienate their base because they need every group that isn't white men, which is primarily what their group is comprised of. And they've lost women by overturning Roe v. Wade, right? So this is kind of a natural shift of well, we can make this person our enemy because our base is men and men like football, but we're going to tap into the misogyny of the men who are mad that a girlfriend gets shown on screen. Because that's all that keeps happening. Taylor Swift goes to the games, which again is super ineffective, and she keeps causing a shit ton of pollution just to attend every football game. I'm not a fan of her green energy mockery, but it's one of those things where that's all she does. They show Patrick Mahomes' wife. They show people's moms in the stands. That's a normal thing in sports. Why anyone cares is just can only be described as sexism and or misogyny, that men are mad that Taylor Swift gets to go to the games and is excited because when Travis Kelce's football playing brother was eliminated from the playoffs, he started going to all the games. He was in the same press box as Taylor Swift. He took off his shirt to celebrate and everybody thought it was funny and charming. And then all the dudes were mad that Taylor Swift was also there. So if you're okay with multi-million-dollar football player Jason Kelce being excited for Travis Kelce, but you're not excited for billionaire pop singer girlfriend to be excited for Travis Kelce, the issue might be that you're misogynistic. And so the anti-vax crowd and the not super Christian woman crowd are already against, that's what they're left with, right? They're left with anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists, because they're the only people who can still be like, Trump's rooting out the deep state. Like, no, Trump's a pedophile. He's not finding out information about pedophiles. He just is one. He's a defendant in multiple sexual assault cases with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, he's on the Epstein file lists. Like, again, known information. We knew this from the 90s. This is not new or revelatory. So we have conspiracy theorist people. We have white males. We have white male evangelicals. We have churchgoers. And that's the only white woman they're really drawing anymore as churchgoers either. College-educated women and suburban women have also been polling very poorly for Donald Trump. So, like, Taylor Swift would be bad. Like, it's still a bad political decision. But if you're kind of tracking, like, the weird conspiracy thinking type stuff, it's like, okay, if women are against us, then we can get our men who are with us and the other women who are with us to be mad at other women. And again, like, this is classism. This is cult mind control tactics mixed with classism. Like, I saw something on Fox News about how much pollution Taylor Swift causes to go to each game. And, like, never has Fox News cared about pollution before. So, like, the misogyny is more enraging to their group. They're trying to elicit a fear response, an emotional response, anger, fear, rather than a logical response. And so, like, that's what we get. We get this super illogical conspiracy theory nonsense that is based in sexism and misogyny and patriarchy and authoritarian control, which is pretty much what the right wing has right now. And it's very bizarre. And what you know, if you know anything about cults, you know that as they get smaller and smaller, the people who are left are more and more extreme, which is also what we're seeing. We're seeing a rise in domestic terrorism. We're seeing more and more nonsense of people just acting foolish because they think God's talking to them, or they think they were called by Trump, or, you know, they have a nonsensical reason. So when you mix religious zealotry, you get people who are getting prophecies, God talked to them in their sleep, etc. This trucker convoy that's trying to get together. That one of the influencers who's leading it believes she's hearing from God, and like, nope, she's not. That's not happening. She's just using that to speak the language to manipulate people. And so grifters are going to grift, and the religious right is getting out-grifted by a famous grifter, Donald Trump. And all that's happening is the base is getting more and more extreme. And, like, it's a little, it would be silly. We could laugh about it. We will laugh about it. But we can't ignore it because it's dangerous. Because, again, the violence and the rhetoric around violence keep increasing. You can dislike Taylor Swift's music and want no harm to come to her. You do not want people committing terrorism attacks. It's not okay to send people death threats. Like, none of that is okay. All that stuff is scary and trauma-inducing, and nobody should have to go through it, even if they make music we don't like, because the world doesn't revolve around just us. And if that's a scary thought for you, that you're going to make a death threat because someone is perhaps highlighting the fact that the world doesn't revolve around you, like, yeah, it would be great to have those people grow up. I don't have a solution. I just have an explanation on why this is all happening and the various moving parts that are contributing to it happening. It's not great. I don't want the Chiefs to win, but 49ers beat the Packers. Packers are my team. I don't want the 49ers to win. 49ers have beat the Packers a lot in the playoffs, so I really don't want them to win. But it is kind of funny to see conservatives get so bent out of shape about a thing that's supposed to be for them. I don't know, like, the only way this could get more silly, in the sense of, like, this should be a conservative win, is if it was NASCAR instead of the NFL. It would be funnier if it was NASCAR, I guess. So maybe, like, a female of color will win some NASCAR races soon, and that will be upsetting to the right wing. Oh. Man, what a weird time to be alive. I would say it's depressing, but, like, the studying history, we have done this before. Again, like, I'll talk about this in my Stamp from the Beginning video. One of the few things, besides talking to young people, which always gives me more hope than I genuinely feel, is that looking at history, we can see how progress has lurched forward, and then there's been a racist or bigoted or patriarchal or authoritarian response. And so we'll progress as a society, and then there's the pendulum swings back the other way. First Black president, Barack Obama, then we get probably one of our more racist presidents, which, like, currently one of the most racist presidents we could have picked from people alive right now. But again, like, there's a senator who was dropping the N-word on the Senate floor while in session less decades ago than you would think. So, like, this progress is like, yeah, it sucks that we can't just progress together and be growing exponentially, that we have to kind of lurch forward and then get pulled back, lurch forward, pull back. It's exhausting. But we've gotten through things like this before, and the outrage machine getting more and more ridiculous is scary because of the threat of violence, but is overall a good thing that the base is getting more extreme. Not that we want extremism in violence, but that we want this base is shrinking, and that's why it's more extreme, because only the most extreme people are not leaving. They're seeing how silly or ridiculous it is. So I guess I'm rooting for the Chiefs. Go Taylor's boyfriend. I don't mean that other than to upset right-wingers. So hopefully this works and people get to see it. We'll put it on Patreon and see how that goes. And then maybe we'll put it on YouTube in time for the Super Bowl. I don't know. I'm winging this. I'm a professional mental health specialist, licensed married family therapist, not a professional YouTuber or Patreoner. Patreon? I don't know. I got to figure out my language here. Anyway, I'm a mental health professional. So you can check out my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram. If you're in the state of Wisconsin and want counseling, you can work with me. My stuff's at Wellness with Jer. That's my moniker on Instagram, YouTube channel, or that's my website, wellnesswithjer.com. Thanks for tuning in. Share, like, subscribe, do those things. I don't know how Patreon works. I'm figuring it out. Appreciate you giving me your time. And if you're offering out support as well, that's awesome. We appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Peace.